plant can make summer more unbearable for people. It's called poison ivy, and it looks like it grows pretty well in mid-Michigan. We're focusing in now with Larry Atkins from the Poison Ivy Control of Michigan, and we want to thank Larry for coming on the show this afternoon to talk to us more about, poison ivy.
Well, thanks, Donna.
The dreaded poison ivy, I should say.
Yeah. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
So I mentioned there at the onset that it grows pretty well in mid-Michigan,
Yes.
poison ivy does. And is it growing better this year because of all of the warm weather we've had, or that doesn't impact it at all?
I think that's a pretty good question, and really the answer to that, according to some recent studies that have been done, perhaps it's growing a little stronger these days because of more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Of course, the heat does help, as with any plants that are growing. A little heat and sunshine helps, but it has more to do with the high levels of carbon dioxide, and actually this drought that we've been going through causes poison ivy to grow a little bit better and actually stand out over and above the other weeds.
So if we get a little rain,
yeah, and then you throw a little rain on top, and then the stuff will really burst out.
Now, we do have some pictures here of the different looks that the poison ivy plant can take on. So the leaves can vary on the plant, is that correct?
Yes, in fact, they can vary greatly. They can be smooth all the way around, or they can be notched. Rarely are they ever actually serrated, but they can have some pretty large notches and vary from plant to plant.
And since they vary so much, how can we identify a poison ivy plant from just a different type of weed?
Well, of course, everybody knows leaves of three leave it be. So poison ivy does have three leaves. One of the main ways to identify poison ivy that I tell all the folks that I come into contact with and my customers and so on is to forget a lot of the things that you read on that about red stems or glossy leaves and these things. I tend to focus more on the fact that there's an inconsistency in the shapes of the leaves. So if you have three leaves on a plant and the two opposing leaves are not a mirror image of each other, then there's a good chance that's poison ivy.
And if a human comes in contact with poison ivy, what kinds of problems can it cause for us?
Well, it can range anywhere from just a small spot on your arm or somewhere on your body that is an irritating itch, all the way to potential hospitalization. Of course, the worst case scenario is if a person was to burn poison ivy and actually inhale the smoke, and the urushiol can travel on the smoke and actually potentially cause death.
And is it also dangerous for our pets who may be outside?
No, actually, dogs and cats and other animals are not susceptible to poison ivy, though they can carry the urushiol on their fur and transfer it to their owners in the house.
Oh, so if you have a pet that's outside and it comes in contact with it, it can bring it into the home?
That's right. As far as I know, only primates can actually contract the rash.
And we're going to take some questions now from our Facebook page. And Nicole wrote on our Facebook page wanting to know if it's true that after you get it, that is poison ivy, that you're more prone to the attacks being worse each time you get it afterwards.
I know that is correct, at least to some degree. Most people have an invisible threshold. Every time you encounter poison ivy, you take another step towards your invisible threshold. Once you cross that threshold, you are forever going to react to poison ivy, and you come into contact with it. And the older that you get, and the more times you experience the rash, the more susceptible you actually become, until your later years when the rash won't be quite as bad or severe, though your susceptibility will still be very strong.
And Jessica from our Facebook page wants to know, can it spread from person to person?
That's a good question, and one of the most commonly asked questions. And the answer to that is, if a person was to come into contact with poison ivy and get the oils on their skin, and before they were to shower or bathe or wash up, if they were to come into contact with another person, then yes, they can transfer the oils to another person. Once a person has showered, bathed, and it's been a day or so, then no. But really, the real question that people ask is, are the sores contagious? Okay, because you get these weeping blisters. And actually, the fact is, no, that's not. That is a myth that a lot of people think that is true.
Now, if someone is out doing some yard work and they think they have poison ivy in their yards, what's the first thing they should do?
Well, the first thing to do is obviously avoid it. The second thing to do would be to call a trained professional to have it identified. Sometimes when people get online on the internet and try to identify it themselves, unless they are very familiar with plants, they find it rather confusing. So I would advise they contact a professional.
And what can we do to control it or get rid of it? Poison ivy spray, like bug and weed spray?
Sure.
To get rid of it?
There's several products on the market that can be bought at hardware stores and farm supply and so on. And these products are readily available and affordable, and they do work fairly well. Of course, a person needs to follow the instructions word for word.
Is a professional better able to handle it?
Yes, much better. I find that a large amount of my customers have been battling their poison ivy for years. They manage to kill everything in the yard except for the poison ivy. Then they call us in and we take care of the problem.
Thank you, Larry, for being here today and sharing this information with us. And if you'd like to get in touch with Larry Atkins from the Poison Ivy Control of Michigan, or if you'd like more information on poison ivy, we have, of course, put a link for you on our website under the See It on TV tab of abc12.com.